Okay, so let's go in here, and I'm going to create my chapter 3 since I didn't do that. So a new project, a Java project, chapter 3. And just click finish. So far you've been writing a lot of classes, but those are just single classes, right? You write a class for hello world, or hello error, or you write one for calculating some type of in your assignments, like the dollars and some of those things, and they're in single class. You do everything inside a single class. Now you're gonna break your code into multiple classes, and you can use those classes within other classes. Okay, when you use that, we will run to something called composition, and I'll explain what that means. So for now, let's go ahead and create a package. Create package by clicking this brown icon here with the plus on the top, and we should call this one here. What do I call this? I'll just say ch3 dot what's this about? Maybe just I have no idea. It's called demo. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, but name something meaningful in your case. Mine just demo. Okay. Again, just a folder structure. That's all it is. And then in here, we're going to create a class. We'll call this. I'll call mine just what should we call it? I'm going to combine chapter 3 and 4 together. Okay, so chapter 3 mainly, shows you how to create classes and functions and data fields. Okay, so we're going to cover chapter 4 together with it. Chapter 4 deals with overloading methods, right? And a few other things like polymorphism as well. So I'm going to call this one here okay, we'll just call this school. Okay, it's school class, and this is kind of related to the project, and I'll cover it in more details maybe next week too. But let's say we have a class called school, and this is not the main program. Okay, so we think about a class called school, and then we'll just leave the public static main out of it, and we'll click finish. Okay. Now, if you think about school as a class, what are some properties about school? Has a name, right? Yeah, so it has a name. And so we could do something like a private string name. Okay, so school has a name. So again, these are what's called data fields, right? All these are called data fields or data members or instance variables, because these are all global. Okay, they're in the global space. They're not contained within within a function, so they're all global. Global means they can be accessed anywhere within this this class. What else does he have? I can list a few things here. Address, right? So for now, we'll just put address here, string. And I'll show you later on how you can actually break that address into its own class. But has a name, has address. What else does it have? School. You and me, right? Students and teachers, right? So we have like private students. Well, if you say students, So we think about that. Student it's an object, right? So we're going to create a class called student and call it student. Okay? You see that now I have to create a student class called student, and it looks just like the string here, but it's of type student because student's going to have their own student names, student IDs, address, and phone numbers, and grade, and so on, right? So with that in mind, we'll create in a minute. So when you think about these classes, you think about what does it contain. The school has address and name, has students, also has faculty, right? We call it faculty, for example. It has many more. It has what other vendors, you have security, all the stuff. But make it a little bit simpler. I'm just going to say have that, and also maybe one field has number of enrollments. So maybe that type int, how many students enroll in this school or something, or enrollment, if that's correct. Okay, so we see that this school contains, these are just properties, but if you look at the student and the faculty, these are actually called composition. Okay, because they contain other classes. So they're composed of student and faculty classes. So we call these composition. So we hear the term create some composition, you automatically think one of those fields must have a class of some type. Okay? So with that in mind, why don't we go ahead and create those two classes, the student and faculty. So we can go create another class, two more classes, and we'll call this student, again, singular. And this will be just your regular concrete class without the method, the main method. And we go through the whole process again, right? So the student has, again, this will be your data fields. Has, again, private int ID. And if you, I'm not sure if you have, if you used database before, but these fields will be very related to a database table. Okay, so the ID will be like your primary key, and will make each student unique, right? Track the student. Have the name. You just call a name for now, but you'll be more specific. You would say first name, last name, middle name, and so on. You might have another field for let's say string address, another one for maybe string of grade. So the grade is a senior, sophomore, or freshman, things like that. Oh, I mistyped. It should be capital S. Okay, so you have those, for example, for students. And it'll be very similar to the faculty. So let's create another class here. So we'll call this the faculty class. And again, just accept the default. Data fields will be kind of similar. We have the private, the faculty ID, the int ID. Very similar to student, right? Just put name. And we'll put department instead of address. We'll just put department. Okay, we'll stop there. So now we have 3 classes, and 2 of those classes, student and faculty, are composed inside the school class. Okay, that's like a broader class. And you can keep going, right? So what do faculty have? You know, besides these are their properties, what do they have? I don't know, but they have other things in there as well. Similar to a student. So if you go back to the school class, so now we resolve those two errors, the student and faculty. So now let's create the constructors, or actually no, before we do that, let's create those setters and getters for these. Okay, so the setters and getters, we'll put that down here. Setters and getters. So we'll do one for the name. We'd say public, and again, these should be public. Otherwise, you can't access because these fields are already private. Public. If you want to set, do the set first. So we're not returning anything. We're just setting the data. So I'll type void, and the name we just again set name, right? Lowercase s, and then name, capital M, name. When you set it, you need to receive a data, so it'll be of type string. And this variable usually, again, by convention, it's always the same name, variable name as your field. It doesn't have to be, okay, but it's usually the same. But as long as the data type matches, then that should be good. And then when we're setting it, we're just going to call the name up here equal to this name. Okay, so if you do this, it's not going to work because if you just type name, notice that this IDE helps you, right? If you click on the name, it tells you, it highlights this and this. I mean, they're all local only to themselves. So basically, all you do is you just reassign itself to itself. And you're not actually changing the actual name out there. So when you have the two variable names like this, exactly the same like this, in the same function, then you have what's called the shadowing. That you see the term in the book. Okay, this name here is shadowing the global name. If you want to access the global variable up there, and in this case, then you always want to put the word this in front of it, and then the dot name. Okay, so this dot name or this dot something will always get the global variables up here, the name as well as other functions too. So this dot set name, this dot get name. And the reason why is because you can have nested functions inside Java. I think. Is it Java or PHP? I'm confused too. Some languages don't let you do it, some do. Okay, so the keyword this always refer to the object is being referenced or being created. We haven't created one yet, but if you were to create an object called school, you call it gateway, then that word this belongs to gateway. Okay, gateway's name, gateway's address, gateway student. And you use this only when you have like two variable names that are identical, and so you can, you know, overpass or go above this shadowing thing, and it's a term to use in Java. Okay, but it's always safe to use the word this in front of that variable name. Okay, it guarantees it to work, so you don't have those errors. We call those logic errors, right? Okay, so that's the getter, and for the setter, we'll say public. For the getter, we're going to get the data, get the name back. So the name is of a type string. So the return type is going to be the same type, usually, string, and then we're going to say get name, and then we're not passing any data to it. So we just basically call the function, and we're just going to get that name back. Again, you can use the name. In this case, it's safe, but it's nothing wrong with using this name. Okay? It's always kind of guarantees it. So that's your setters and getter for that field. It's always going to be this way, mostly for most languages. Okay? Set name, get name. You'll see that the word get and set will be in there by default.
Is that why it's generally that I understand the significance in terms of programming to new variable files that can be accessed by the class that I went to, but is that why you sometimes get rid of them in public so that you don't do getter? If you left them as public variables instead of private, would you have to do the getter and set them as?
If you leave them as public.
Yeah.
Okay, you can. You don't have to, but you can. The reason why you would do private instead of public is there is a huge benefit for this as well. And besides, information hiding, is show in a minute here. Hold that thought for a minute, okay? We'll get there. Really good question. Okay, so that's how you create it. Okay, so make sure you know how to create setters and getters. It's very, very standard. Applies to all of them like this. If it's the int type, you can create one for int type and faculty and so on. Even the class type, I just do exactly the same. It'll be a type class, student, and then so on. So that's how you do it. And then because most of these current or IDEs have a shortcut, I'm just going to show you how you do shortcut to get those for you automatically. Okay, so you don't have to type this like by hand. So what you do is you're going to right click here in the code here where you want to put the setters and getters. Right click and go to the source. You put over mouse over the source, and you'll see that there's a function called or a menu called generate setters or getters and setters. Okay, like that. It's very standard. Most IDs have them. Because it's just too standard. And here you have a list of all your fields. The ones that doesn't have the getters and setter yet, because we already created the setter and getter for the name. As you can see, it's not listed here. Okay, if I don't have one, it would be here as well. So you can choose all of them, or just say, hey, you know what, just don't do this one. You can select one of those, or just say select all, and then make sure they are public, and just click OK, and there you have them. Okay, all created for you. As you can see, it's the same name. The data type matches the one you set up there. Sometimes, again, you might have to modify to make it work, especially if you deal with arrays. Okay, we'll do array later on. But there you go, you create all these setters and getters for this class very easily. So go ahead and create for the other two classes using the shortcut. You can do that in a jiffy, right? So let's go over to the student. Right below here, just enter a few lines, right click, source, and generate setters and getters. Select all and OK, and then bam. Okay, got them. That's simple. And that's why I recommend using these IDEs. Save you a lot of time. Okay, and do the same with the faculty. Just go over here, just go down here, do again, right click, source, getters and setters, and select all, and then click OK. And just make sure you put some space above here, because we're going to create the constructors in here in a bit. So we got all these setters and getters in under a minute. If you create new fields, you just keep adding, right? If you add another field here, just again do right click and then just do that as well.
And you want us to do that on all three classes that we created, student,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's one way to do it, right? Really fast. Or if you have like private int a, you can also do one manually. Also, if you mouse over that, the a, it will tell you this is create setter and getter for a, right? You can do one for each manually from here as well. If you click that, it will just create that for you, and just say yes, and it will create that for you. Okay, it's down the bottom here. Okay, so I'm not going to delete this. Just showed you how we can do that. One for each, or you can do all at once.
So I have a quick question.
Hmm?
So inside the setters, in the parentheses, it shows the data field type, and then it also has variable. So does that mean inside those parentheses, it's creating a local variable for that method?
Inside the setter, like in the set ID here.
Yeah. So set ID in the parentheses, it says integer ID. Does
Mm-hmm.
that mean that it's creating a local variable ID that is an integer type?
Yes. Yes, right. So anything in the paren here are considered as local variables. local to that function called set ID. So yeah, it auto-create that because it knows that the ID is of type integer, so it must receive an integer type to populate that ID. And if you want it to be different, then you have to go in there and manually change it. You could have like a different type, and then you would do some logic in here. You can say if you could accept a string if you want. It makes no sense, but you could. Okay, but typically it's just the default type for that ID or that field. Okay, so we create all the fields and their setters and getters, each of them. So the school is composed of two classes, student and faculty. So if you create an object called out of school, then all of these properties will be associated with that school object. It doesn't mean you can't create student object, by itself. You can. If you do that, the student class have no, school information, just the student itself. Okay, so let's create our main program. So remember, these are just classes to record each entity, right? Each class is an entity of a certain object, and you should mix them. Just if you again back to databases, each table is a very specific entity or a certain object, a thing, right? It's a thing. So school is a thing, and then if you have something that is more than inside the school or that class, break it up, break into their own classes. Like if you have a class called, vehicle, and so you have cars, you have motorcycles and planes, break them up into their own classes. Okay. So let's create our main program here. I'm going to create another class, and we'll call this here I'll just call it main program. Okay. You could call it, educational something, but just call main program, and we're going to have the main method in there. So go ahead and check that box for the static void main and click finish. So this is where everything begins, inside this main method here. Okay, so before we continue, why don't we take a break and we'll come back and we'll start doing some more code on these classes. Okay, so see you back in 10.